Hello, hello everyone. Let me see if I can get going live on Facebook. Everything's up. We are live everywhere. Let me pull up my chat. So I'm waiting to get my chat going. It takes a minute sometimes. Why is my chat not up? There it is. Woohoo! It's getting there. Let me close out one of these because two windows are up for it. I don't know why. That's weird. So today, it's trying to load up two chat windows, which is not cool. I just need one. Okay. All right. So I have my chat window up. Hello, hello, hello. Let me see if I'm going to check on my phone and see if I'm up on YouTube. Sometimes it takes a minute for that to load. So let's see. Yes, I'm on YouTube. All right, I'm on YouTube. I'm on Periscope. Is this an open hangout? I'm streaming from my laptop, but if you're interested in having like an after show, if you want to do an open hangout afterwards, I'm happy for us to kind of go in and have like a forum, like an open discussion. That's always an option. But right now I just have this streaming through OBS, but I do answer your questions directly and I do repeat what people say in the comments. Hello. Here we go. So it looks like I'm up on Periscope and I'm up on YouTube and we're streaming on Facebook. So hello to the Facebook social media addiction. Yeah, so I thought, this is kind of controversial, a bit of a controversial topic, but that's okay. We do not shy away from controversy, do we? We've talked about flat earthers here. We've talked about influence. We've talked about gun violence. We've talked about all kinds of things on this show. So I have Animal here who's liking everything that I'm doing. So is that where there'll be tips for cold turkey? Well, here's the thing. And I'm wonderful today. Full of wonder. So tips for cold turkey. Here's the thing, it's a lot more complicated than people give it credit to be. And there's a lot of misconceptions in regards to internet addiction overall. And so I'm going to talk about all of the new stuff in regards to social media addiction, but we're also going to touch a little bit on gaming addiction, just briefly make a nod to that, as well as internet addiction, because it's a thing that exists. And it's kind of hard. It's kind of hard to kind of get through. Oh, hello. You're Fit Walker on Twitter too. Hello, Comet. Hello, everyone. Do your cells in your body have all the exact same DNA sequence? They're supposed to have the exact same DNA sequence, but I would imagine you might have some changes because we do have a thing called cancer, and sometimes you can have cells that are directly affected by, for instance, HPV. HPV is a virus that injects, RNA into your cells. And so that can actually, in turn, alter your cells overall. So you can have cells that don't have the same DNA sequence. If I stream a talk about internet addiction online, am I a dealer now? It is similar. There's more information that we need in regards to social media addiction. And that's pretty much what science ends up saying in the end, is we need more studies. But there is internet addiction disorder. So I am going to talk about that as well. So the goal, what we're going to talk about essentially, is the signs, What's does the research say? So we kind of need to know a bit about what does the research say, and what personality types do we see associated with social media addiction? It's a bit more complicated. It's not, I'm constantly on social media doesn't necessarily mean you are addicted. Screen time is very, very, it can be, being on the internet for a period of time doesn't necessarily mean you're addicted to it. So we kind of have to, we're going to have to talk about gauging that, you know. So there are some apps that you can download on your phone to see how often you are on your phone. But just because you're on your phone a lot doesn't necessarily mean that you are addicted to it. So that's one of those little myths that we're going to debunk a bit today. But first thing we need to do is understand what is addiction. What is addiction? It's a chronic disorder. It's intense focus on a particular thing. 50% of the risk is genetic, and it completely takes over your life. So the American Psychiatry Association, as well as the Psychological Association, discuss addiction as follows. It's a chronic disorder with biological, psychological, social, and environmental factors that influence the development of addiction and the maintenance of it. About half of this risk for addiction is genetic. So we see people with addiction that have some genetic overtones associated with that. Hello, everyone. Hello. So people with addiction, you know, like severe substance use disorder or any type of addiction to a behavior, have an intense focus on this particular type of behavior or substance. If we were to look at alcohol or drugs, there's like an intense focus on using that particular substance. Well, if you have a particular behavior that kind of fires off those reward pathways in your brain, and we're going to talk about what those are, it eventually just kind of takes over their life. So unless social media is absolutely taking over your life, it's not really an addiction. So that's something that we got to kind of talk about. So let's talk a little bit about genetics. So genes, and we talk a little bit, I've talked a lot about genes before when we've talked about DNA. You see eBay addiction as the first search on Google for social media addiction. That's interesting. So genes have an effect on the degree of reward individuals experience when initially using something or doing a thing. All right, so our genes can kind of, you know, hurt us a little bit, especially if we get a bit of that reward that's just huge when we do a particular thing. Now, it could be drugs or engaging in behaviors like gambling and social media and the internet, playing video games. The way the body processes drugs also has an effect on addiction. So if we're looking at drugs, how your body processes it, that's one way. Another way is genetics. Oh yes, we're going to define taking over your life, and I will get into what the criteria is. There was a literature review that was done. Words are hard. That was done in regards to criteria associated with internet addiction as well as social media addiction. All right, so there's this strong desire to re-experience this type of reward that's given from a particular behavior. So there are influences that we see that can kind of increase use of a particular substance, like if we're talking drugs, or if we're looking at behaviors like using the internet. So these potential influences are psychological. So you could have stress, you could have a history of trauma, you could have social triggers or social influences like family or friends' use of a particular thing. You could have environmental factors, accessibility to it. Is it cheap? This sort of thing. So these factors can lead to regular use. Chronic use and exposure can also lead to changes in your brain. So, hello, Keith. Keith is a social media addict. Mark Zuckerberg equals the #1 social media addict. Boy, I bet, yeah. So these changes, these brain changes can actually occur, and you can actually see the differences in brains between people who, for instance, use drugs as opposed to people who don't. Well, behaviors can also fire off these types of pathways. So quiverful families are addicted to the hormones that come from seeing a newborn in your arm. I guess, I don't know. Haha. Thank you for sharing the link. So these brain changes, where do we see these brain changes in regards to addiction? Well, the prefrontal cortex and the limbic system regions. Now, the limbic system is kind of important because that's the part of your brain that controls reward, that controls motivation. It controls your memory. It controls impulse control as well as judgment. So it can actually affect your decision making. These changes can also lead to substantial increases in cravings for that particular thing that you're intensely focused on. This also leads to impairing your ability to control this impulse, even though you know the consequences of this addictive behavior. Hello, everyone. Which time you're listening, at least. That's okay. That's okay. So these particular changes in your brain can actually also affect long-term in regards to controlling yourself and stopping your impulse. You can't control the impulse so much. So it's not so easy and not so cut and dry in regards to social media addiction or internet addiction or any of that. So let's have a look. What does this mean? All right, so we've got, I should probably make that a bit bigger. All right, so we look at Facebook, we look at YouTube, we look at Tumblr, we look at Twitter, we get likes, we get hearts, we get a little bit of this instant gratification from looking at social media. So we get positive responses from people on a particular thing you post. So you might post a picture of yourself, you might have a very, very well thought out comment about a political thing, or you might have a video and somebody is going to like it. You give out tons of likes on Tumblr. Okay. Oh my God, I give out tons of likes. I'm an enabler. Okay. So people get positive responses and it makes them feel good when they get a lot of likes or a lot of retweets, or they get hearts or positive comments or some kind of validation through that, and it fires off this reward system in their brain. And for some people this can become addictive. Hello, hearts to you too. What it takes to break an addiction is recognizing it as such and making a hardcore decision to change. Then when the craving occurs, distract yourself. Yes, it's very, very difficult to do because you're actually having to fight your own brain chemistry at one point in time. You're having to fight the urge to do a thing. So for some people, in regards to this instant gratification, they get a high off of that, and it makes them feel good. The boost of likes, hearts, and positive comments. And some people fire off that reward system, giving them a high they want to maintain. Hello, everyone. Hello. So let's take a look. What does that actually mean? So what we've got is ooh, notification. Yay, somebody liked a thing. Somebody RT'd me. Somebody did this. And here's the thing. More information is coming out to us in regards to this constant stream of information that comes at us that fires off our reward pathways. There's no natural off cue in regards to binge watching TV or looking through Facebook. There's no natural end. It's not like when we pick up a book. So if I have a book here, I have a book and I sit here, when I get to the end of a chapter, I'm like, this is a stopping point. I can close it, right? Or you get to the end of the book. I'm finished with this book. I can stop now. There's no natural off cue for social media. And it's an instant reward. We get an instant reward from interacting with people. And somewhere somebody's going to be up at any point of time in the day. Whether if you're up at 3 a.m., there's somebody else on the other side of the world that's going to be there. So certain areas of Tumblr is literally acidic. Oh, goodness. So, but yes, I mean, and it's fun. But that's something we got to kind of keep in mind. We don't have these natural off cues that we normally see with just standard day-to-day type of things. So let's talk about this reward system, this mesolimbic dopamine pathways that go on. So whenever we have a particular stimuli that fires off these things in our brain, hello everyone, hello. So we have this stimuli that fires off this mesolimbic dopamine pathway in our brain that gives us this natural high that we have. We do that enough times, we're going to have to continue to engage more in a particular activity just to feel that high again. So the urge to control this impulse becomes impaired the more we fire it off like that. This is why people can easily become obsessive collectors of various things, be it pictures of cats, football stickers, sci-fi figurines, etc. We can all easily fall into such mental gratification loops. Yes, that's true. So we can absolutely fall into this type of regular reward type of behavior. It doesn't have to be social media. It could be shoes. I used to buy purses all the time. I never carry a purse, but I like the way purses look. My mother, here's the thing with Keds. My mother couldn't have Keds when she was a kid, so now she just buys Keds all the time, and she has shoes she's never worn. Okay, is there an off-key? Somebody asked. Is there an off-key to communicating science? Do you need an intervention, or is the addiction still manageable for you? I am scientist Mel. My name's Melody, and I am an addict to communicating science. I have this thing that I want to do. It's, talk about science all the time, and it's completely overtaken my life because for whatever reason, people want to listen to me, and that's just gratifying. Do you think cutting yourself from social media is a good thing or a bad thing? See, here's something I'm going to talk about in regards to that. There's studies that have been done where people have cut off social media completely and they were miserable. So we'll get to that in just a second. The internet just streams such things at us constantly, and so makes this effect even more extreme. Yes, I do. I have a lot of purses, and I don't carry one. I literally, all I do is carry my phone. It's like a wallet. I don't do purses. So I like purses, and I have several, but it's weird for me to carry them now. It's weird. I'm a breathing addict. I can't stop. That's true. That's true. Breathing addicts, they're a thing. So let me show you. Let's see. I'm going to go to the big monitor now, and I'm going to show you guys some statistics, because you guys like graphs. We like graphs. This is a science show. So limit is better than cut. Yes. But I've stopped going on impulse and scheduled. It works better. That's true. You can schedule it. All right. So in 2012, social networking was considered the #1 online activity in the U.S. And this comes from the source. Now, Statista made this particular graph, but the source is GFK, which works in internet analysis. So they're a particular company that you can hire to check and do analysis on various online activities. So they found that adults aged 13 to 64, about approximately 5,000 adults they looked at, the majority of time spent was on social networks. So social networks take up a lot of our time, followed by email. We look at online videos. We also have other, I'm not certain what other is. Don't know quite what that 31 minutes there is other. That seems unaccounted for. But at least with the others, we got categories. And then online gaming shows about 17. All right. So that's the average time, hours and minutes. Other. Well, I thought online video would count in that. That's not a real graph, that's a cartoon. Yes, yes. But it suits our purpose for what we're going to do, what we need it to do. So let me go back to here. All right. So what are we looking at in regards to internet addiction disorder? So this is the thing. I wish more people were addicted to educating and promoting science, logic, reason, and evidence-based beliefs. Yeah, that would be quite useful, wouldn't it? Hello, everyone. So what do we see in regards to internet addiction disorder? We have neurological complications, so we have changes in the brain. We have psychological disturbances, which also can include anxiety and depression. And we have social problems. Hello, Cersei. You are pretending to be Debbie. Oh my goodness. So what are we looking at in regards to social media? So substantial research has been done on internet addiction disorder in picking apart this type of addiction. It has yet to be included in the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders. The only behavioral addiction included in the latest version is gambling disorder. Yet internet gaming disorder was included in a section of the DSM, which is currently the 5th version, asking that they recommended further study. You think I'm blushing? Oh my goodness. Statistics used that way show the mid and thus leave some ambiguity in the results. I agree. Accuracy lacking in basic stats for definitives. I agree. But GFK, you can go and take a look at them. I know they're a private sector organization and they're not necessarily bound to the same type of scrutiny as other organizations, and especially science ones. So I do take that a little bit with skepticism in regards to that graph. Hello, hello. So internet addiction. What do we do? What does the research say? Well, screen time is not a good gauge on whether or not you're addicted. It's just not. So there was a review of literature done in 2011, and the findings indicate that social network sites, also known as SNS, are predominantly used for social purposes. And it's mostly for individuals to maintain offline relationships, friendships, circles of friends. So that's primarily what people use social network sites for. I think I'm actually internet addicted, but if I can break off from it, like if there's no internet around, I don't feel wrong, so I don't know. That's not a real addiction then. I wouldn't worry about that. Calling internet an addiction is problematic. Well, no. There's addiction, being on the internet a lot does not necessarily mean that you have an addiction. That's why screen time is not a good gauge for that. 5 minutes for no's for online radio, but when I listen to a single podcast, I may spend 180 minutes at one installment, thus filling the slot. Yeah, well, possibly, but you also got to look at the age range was pretty wide, right? That was a pretty broad age range. So if you consider it was what, 13 to 64, you're talking, if they were to break it down in groups, I imagine that you would see a lot different results in regards to specific demographics. So in that regard, yes, you are correct. It is a little bit, well, what are we looking at there? So you were addicted for a while, so it's real. Okay. I'm trying to catch up on everybody's comments. So, well, I do break my internet addiction once in a while. I'm connected when I go to the bathroom and get groceries. Oh my goodness. All right, I will get into the classifications of internet addiction. All right, so what they found with social network sites, they're primarily used for social purposes. They're mostly related to keeping relationships, current relationships, offline relationships. So personality types use it differently. There are some negative effects in social, and those negative effects can be, for instance, heavy usage, but if it's addiction, that can include a decrease in offline social community participation. There's academic issues. Their grades start to suffer. There's relationship problems associated with it. And those are indicative of potential addiction. So if you're having problems outside of social media that's affecting you, your job, that sort of thing, then you're dealing with that. Ruins lives by causing, yes, neurological complications, psychological disturbances, and social problems. Yes. So unless you're suffering mental illness in the form of anxiety and depression, coupled with grief, feelings of guilt, is it affecting your personal relationships? Is it affecting your job? Is it affecting your friends? Then we're looking at, addiction in that regard. What is SNS? That's social networking sites. That's what SNS is. If you're wondering. All right. There was recently a study published talking about the Bergen Facebook addiction scale. So they took a pool of about 18 items, 3 of them reflecting each of the 6 core elements of addiction that we see. So these 6 core addiction types of elements are salience, mood modification, tolerance, withdrawal, conflict, and relapse. All of these types of things we see in addicts. And so they constructed and administered it to about 423 students and other standardized self-report scales like the addictive tendency scale, online sociability scale, Facebook attitude scale, the NEO-FFI, the BIS/BAS scales, and they also looked at their sleep patterns. So what they found was that they were able to successfully develop a particular scale on whether or not you're addicted to Facebook, looking at those particular types of behaviors of withdrawal. There's conflict. Tolerance. Do they increase their amount of use? Do they feel like they have withdrawal symptoms from it? Does it affect their sleep? And the reliability was relatively high for this particular study. There is an interesting interview with Miguel, Nicolas, and Ronald. I'm terrible with names. Circarel, the singularity isn't near. The brain can't be simulated on YouTube. I am generally social, but my tendency to call out BS does cause some difficulty in the real world social setting. Online, not so much. Well, yeah. All right, so I have to fulfill my daily washing clothes addiction quota. All right, so in regards to personalities, they found that extroverts tend to use social networking sites or social media for enhancement. So it's to enhance their social characteristics and their interactions. Introverts use it for social compensation. So introverts who are not heavily social media is quite important to them. So it gives them an outlet in order to connect with people that they wouldn't normally interact with outside of their home. So there is, there are benefits to social media. So some tact is needed. Indeed. So what about addicts? Well, narcissists and also people with low self-esteem tend to become addicted to social media. This gratification, especially we see with narcissists, and I actually did a talk about this in regards to trolling and online stalkers. Trolls tend to be narcissistic, sadistic, and Machiavellian. The more dangerous type, or the people that really get involved in heavy trolling. So it's not too much of a stretch to consider that narcissists can also be addicts. They can be addicted to social media because this gratification that they get from the constant stream of likes and hearts and retweets, and this also allows them to easily develop a fantasy world. So we're looking at narcissists, and we are looking at people with low self-esteem. This is one way that they can build up their ego. So we find that those are primarily people that are addicts, or the narcissists, and people with low self-esteem. The hypothesis is this: even though we invent tools or crutches to help people who are behind, we will eventually use these to enhance our normal people, so people will use social media to be normal. Well, that's true. You're doing homework while you're watching my stream. Okay. You don't have any face tabs open. Sweet. So here we go. So that's a bit of the research. So symptoms and diagnosis. So how do you know if you're addicted? What is the criteria in regards to this? Well, anxiety and depression. People who suffer addiction tend to have high amounts of this. They have social issues. They have issues maintaining relationships. They have issues with their friends. They can even have issues with their work. Maybe they're neglecting their work. So it's not much different than other addiction criteria in regards to the behaviors that we see. Now, given substance abuse, there are extremes. We have to keep in mind that there are extremes in regards to addiction and the behaviors associated with it. It is a spectrum. And so treatment is going to be very, very, very different. I agree completely with Brian. It's exactly the same epistemology. Yes. So, woo, you guys don't want to see all that. That's for me, for my notes. So what does this mean, essentially? All right, so in regards to internet addiction, all right, let's look at internet addiction and apply it a little bit to social media addiction. I must be an internet schizophrenia addict. In the real world, I speak entirely Danish, while from the second I turn on the computer, I speak entirely English. Oh my goodness. All right, so if a person, here's symptoms and criteria in regards to internet addiction. And we can kind of probably apply this also to social media. This is what the manipulation of social media and the lack of critical thinking does. Do you agree? Yeah. So is a person, the things that they look at, preoccupation with the internet, do they think about previous online activity and or anticipate the next time that they're online? All right, so how often are you thinking about this social media interactions, and what are you anticipating your next session? So that's one. There's 8 different things you have to consider. All right. I feel like I need to be in touch with people in the wintertime, but in spring when I can go for a walk, enjoy nature, you don't need the internet at all. Okay, well, yeah, see, that's the thing. You don't, just because you're on the internet a lot does not mean you're addicted to it. So what are the criteria for addiction? That's what we need to look at. Are you thinking about previous online activity and your next session? What are you going to do? Are you thinking about, okay, I was on Facebook and I did this, or I was on Twitter and I did this, and the next time I'm on Twitter, I'm going to do this? You know, do you feel like you need it? Are you with increased amounts of time in order to achieve satisfaction? So do you feel like you absolutely need it, and do you need to spend more time in order to feel satisfied? That's something that you have to think about. Have you made unsuccessful efforts to control or cut back or stop using social media? So have you tried to quit and you just couldn't, cut back? You don't have to quit altogether, but have you tried to cut back and you felt like you couldn't do it? It was just too overwhelming. Another thing, restlessness, moody, depression, anxiety, or irritable. Do you have anxiety when you're attempting to cut down or stop using the internet, or to cut back on social media? Does this trigger any kind of anxiety or depression? Have you stayed online longer than you intended? Now, that's another thing, but at least one of these other 3 things has to be present along with what I've just said. So I've just said 5 things: thinking about it constantly, what you're going to do next time on the internet. All right. Do you have to increase the amount you're on in order to feel satisfied? Have you tried to cut back and you couldn't successfully do it? Okay. 4, does it trigger anxiety? Are you moody, restless, depressed, irritable when you cut back? And have you stayed on longer than you thought than you wanted to. Those are the 5 things, all right? So you have to have those 5 things plus at least one of these next 3, all right? At least one of the next 3, all right? Has it jeopardized or risked the loss of a relationship to you? Job, educational, or career opportunity. So has your time on the internet or on a social networking site jeopardized or risked the loss of a person, like a relationship, your job, education, and or career opportunity? So you got to look at that. Has it affected you in that realm? That's a thing. Have you lied to your family members about it, or a therapist or others, to conceal how much time you've been involved in social media or on the internet, right? So that's another thing. Do you use it to escape problems of relieving a dysphoric mood, feelings of helplessness, guilt, anxiety, or depression? So some people might use it to kind of branch out, to vent. That's not what I'm talking about. If you're using social media as like a stream of venting, that's not the same when you add all those other things to it. So keep in mind, you can use the internet as a way of escaping from, or to vent your problems. But if you're doing that in addition to constantly thinking about it, using it with increased amount of time in order to feel better or satisfied, you've not been able to cut back, and when you do cut back, you feel anxiety, depressed, all of that. And if you stayed on longer than you thought, you gotta look at the whole thing. You gotta look at the whole thing. So it's not just, I've spent so much time on the internet, that's it. I've spent so much time on social media, that's it. You have to have all of these other criteria and factors. So that's what makes it an addiction. The behaviors that coincide, feeling a need to be on top of it and have it all the time. That's different. Hello, everyone. So that's something you have to think about. So what is science doing? All right, what are we looking at in regards to this? Science still needs to step up on its research in regard to social media addiction. Now, if you feel you need help or suffer any of those symptoms, hello, Dave, thank you. If you feel like you need help or suffer any of these symptoms of addiction, therapy is always a good way to gain insight as to what you need in order to feel better, because there could be other underlying issues there that are driving you to have a type of addiction. Now, totally unplugging from social media is not so easy, especially if you're a person who has used it to be your primary source of information. We're looking at introverts, or people that aren't heavily social. That is their connection with people. Now, we also see this especially for younger generations who have always had this media form. So kids that are growing up constantly, with this social media, this is kind of a part of who they are and how they've learned to be social. Thank you, Bo. So if we just cut this out altogether, we've seen that studies have shown removing smartphones, internet, and social media altogether is detrimental to certain individuals, especially if they were brought up with this media form and have had it incorporated daily into their lives. So cutting it out altogether isn't necessarily a good thing either. Cutting it out altogether isn't necessarily a good thing, and you don't have to cut it out altogether. The only way it becomes an addiction is if it affects and takes over your life. Is it affecting your relationships? Is it affecting your job or career or academics? Are you lying to people about your use of it? Are you using that as a mode of escape? But that's coupled with using it constantly, thinking about it constantly, all of those other points that we had brought up earlier. Yeah. Oh, goodness. You guys are funny. So this brings us to kind of the end of this particular talk. The thing is ultimately scientists need more research. We have to have more research in regard to this. My suggestion to people who want to unplug themselves from social media, even for an experiment, get yourself a goal, like clear this wood or something along these lines, but interacting with nature. That's a good idea. And also, you can schedule time. I have notifications turned off, primarily on Twitter and Google Plus and certain ones, and then I go and I check at certain times of the day. So I don't have my phone constantly going off with notifications, because that can be overwhelming sometimes. So for me, having my phone constantly blowing up all the time kind of, I feel it's a bit overwhelming. So I can get overwhelmed with just notification. And so I shut off my notifications on a lot of different platforms. And then I'm like, you know what? I haven't checked this in a little bit. Let me go look. And then I come back and it's like Twitter. They just quit adding numbers at the bottom of your @. They just say 20 plus. And so it's like, oh, 20 plus. Okay, let me try to catch up now. And then I'll go through and see if I can, find, if somebody's trying to ask me a question. That's why I say to people, please use my hashtag, #HeyScientistMel, because Twitter adding me isn't always the best option, because sometimes I don't see all of them. So if you want me to talk to you, or at least you have a question and you want me to see it right away, use that hashtag, because the @ don't always work for me, and I can always check my hashtag, and it's always going to be there, all the stuff that people want me to see. Like, hey, have you seen this? Like, wow, that was so cool, thank you for sharing that with me. I'm like, her mental clarity is rare for me to see. You don't use or have Twitter or Facebook. I'm annoying enough on a single platform. It's just, I like social media in that it is a good way to broadcast information and have positive interactions with people. People on my Facebook, I know pretty well, and primarily outside of online realms. And then, you develop friends of friends through social media sites, and that's helpful. Have both, never used either except for precise messaging of certain individuals. Things to add: sugars, spices, starch, diced vegetables. Indeed. So what we've pretty much covered today is social media addiction, the signs and symptoms, the research associated, personality types who tend to be addicted. And you can always, if you feel like you're have anxiety associated with social media, there's nothing wrong with going to a therapist and talking about it. The big secret about setting yourself a goal: it has to be hard enough to take an effort to reach it, but not hard enough to feel you frustrated so you can't reach it. That's true too. So in making goals and that sort of thing, it's good to have reasonable goals. You think there should be an IQ education minimum standard to use some technology? I don't know. I think people can find good resources and develop a good education in regards to finding what I think is important is understanding what good sources are, what bad sources are, how to critically think and realize what your biases are, so you're willing to accept new information. That to me is crucial in regards to the internet. Where is Wonder Woman? Is she being punished? Wonder Woman's right here. I'm having my coffee, man. Your new goal is getting up in the morning. Then I want to try to start running in the morning if I can. I haven't been doing it because I've just been tired. But hey, there you go. So I'm gonna take a moment to show you all my sources. Here's the thing, my sources are a bit overwhelming. I spent a lot of time on this. Let me fit this to screen. There we go. I have a lot of sources here. And the good news is you don't have to read all of these, because I did for you. And the good news is also, I don't expect you to write all this down. I'm just showing you I did a lot of work. But I will post these slides on my website, so you can pull up these slides yourself, download them, click on the links and dive in a bit more. You've been getting your running sessions in, lost some weight recently. Awesome. So I don't expect you to click on all of these right now. I'm just letting you know if it's something you're interested in, you can go to my website and check it out. Let me fix this, because there we go. In that way that you don't have to be overwhelmed and be like, wait, I can't click on all that. Don't worry. It'll be on my website, so it'll be okay. Too low resolution. Yes, that as well. So I'm going to take a moment to thank my patrons. Tony, James, Lauren, Jen, Carl, Melanie, Patrick, Daniel, Paula, Tim, Carrie, Cersei, Keith, Zachary, Tony, Graham, Tristan, Jennifer, Corey, and most recently, Heavy has contributed to my Patreon. If you like what I do, my patrons are, I just can't thank them enough. They help me keep the lights on. I'm able to get new tech because of their contributions. I have a website because of their contributions. I'm able to up the quality of my broadcast because of their contributions. Everything that they contribute, I funnel right back into generating new content. I was recently able to purchase new software to where I can generate little 30-second to 1-minute long videos. You can see them on YouTube, little snippets on evolution explained easily in 30 seconds, or for 30-45 seconds. All of this. I can. I'll put a Patreon link in the description. It's patreon.com/scientistmel. Fortunately, Scientist Mel is just everywhere on that. And if you're on Facebook, because of my patrons, I'm able to stream now to Facebook at the same time. And my patrons get early access to my audio podcast, Hey Scientist Mel. They get it a week in advance. They also get behind the scenes footage. They got a little bit of snippets of when I met Neil deGrasse Tyson. And so they get a lot of their own little things that's just for them, in addition to exclusive artwork. And if you're one of my higher paying patrons, you can pick out which art piece you want. I'll print it out and mail it to you. So there are rewards. There are reasons to do things, on my Patreon, if you like. So, I like this gift. It's wonderful, and I use it all the time for my patrons. So where can you find me? Everywhere. Scientistmel.com, patreon.com/scientistmel. Thank you. I'm glad you like my website. Scientistmel.com, I put all of my articles there. I write things. I'm currently writing a book on cognitive bias. I also have recently written things in regards to how to communicate science, why PETA is problematic, and how they use bad science. I'm going to go back through and put more articles on there about ripping apart bad studies so you can kind of know what to look for. Patreon.com/scientistmel. I'm on Periscope, YouTube, Facebook. Find me there. And if you want to contribute to any of my work, if you're a science enthusiast, you want to hop on a show, I do that as well. My podcast is #HeyScientistMel. And the next episode that will be live for the general population is featuring Evo PhD. I've been trying. Steam STEM. Okay, I'll use that hashtag. I do need to post more on Steam It. I've just been moving a lot of articles from my website to there. G+ too. I've been putting stuff on G+. It's a lot of work. It's a lot of work. Yeah, YouTube will never run out of studies on cognitive dissonance. That's true. That's true. It is a lot of work what I do, and it's primarily me. I do have individuals that help me out in regards to promoting my stuff. So if you're interested in the audio podcast, #HeyScientistMel. The next one that'll be live for the general population is featuring Evo PhD and her research in evolution education. Just yesterday, I did a recording with Country Counselor on Twitter. She is a mental health therapist, and she works with LGBTQ individuals. We had a fantastic chat. She works with them as well as people of color in regards to racism trauma. So we had a really good talk about that, and she does work with women's issues. So I'll be posting that for my patrons probably today or tomorrow. You'll have early access to that. fantastic talk, and she's agreed to be on my show at some point in time, to where you guys can ask her questions directly on a live stream. We'll do the science of country counselor. Magnificent and wonderful lady. So please do check her out. Scientist Mel got moved into Gen Pop. So yes, so be sure to check out the podcast, and I'm adding more videos here. And so if you like what I do, hit me up on Patreon, or send me a one-time donation on PayPal. So oh, you feel like I'm on too many media, but I could be wrong. I guess I get a lot of views on Periscope, though. I tend to get more views on Periscope than I do YouTube, which is interesting, but that's its own thing. So this has been the science of social media addiction. If you have questions, you can hit me up on Twitter. You can go to my website. There's a way to contact me through there, and I've been getting messages from people on my website, so that comes straight to my email, and I can get back to you on that. Or hit me up on Facebook. Ask me questions in the comments here on YouTube. I'm just so glad you guys are here and that you've enjoyed this. Science needs more studies in regards to social media addiction, but the thing is a lot of the behaviors are similar to other forms of addiction. So thank you guys for being on here. I will be on SciStrike. I think they're moving Science Sunday to tomorrow. So I will be on there continuing on with their climate change talk. And so I've been a guest on that. Is there such a thing? Thumbs up. Thank you. I love you guys too. So I guess that's all for what I have. And I didn't do my intro that I normally do. Oh, you just became a patron. Thank you, Dragnot. I appreciate that. So thanks, Drag, for being a patron. So I didn't do my intro like I normally do. So I guess I will end with my other intro. Oh, and just as a heads up, I will be filming and pre-recording shorter versions of my shows like this, and I'm going to call them Scientist Mel Shorts. So if you can't sit through like an hour-long episode, I'm going to whittle it down to just the facts and take my science of particular shows and make them in more accessible, smaller amounts, so you can watch them. If you don't want to watch this entire stream where I have the interaction, I'll have shortened versions of just the facts of what I'm talking about, and it should be around 20 minutes or so. So that's not near as long as these longer interaction ones. Goodness. Now I want some. You made me want pecan pie, Dragnot, man. I'll be in New Orleans next week. So next Saturday's show will be streamed from New Orleans, and I will be talking to Monty Stickman. He's going to appear on my show, and then I'll be talking to Jackson Wheat the following Sunday. So, but in 90 minutes, a new talk with Riley will commence. Just forgot who announced yesterday. So next weekend I will be in New Orleans, and so I will be streaming from there with Monty Stickman talking about his work, and we'll also talk about, I'll be talking to Jackson Wheat in person. I'll be talking to Jackson Wheat in person, so we'll have an in-person chat with him. That'll be fun. The video quality on Periscope is better than on YouTube. That's weird, maybe. I don't know, but I stream to Periscope, Facebook, and YouTube, so don't fall for the beans thing in New Orleans. I've been to New Orleans many times. I go there for the food, friend. I go there for the food. So look for Scientist Mel Shorts, Hey Scientist Mel audio podcast, and check out my website, scientistmel.com. And if there's something that you want me to talk about, hit me up, because primarily all of my content is viewer generated. Social media was something that somebody asked me for at the beginning of the year. So yes. Oh, it'll be great. Jackson's appeared on my channel, on my podcast before, on a Hey Scientist Mel episode. It was a great talk. He'll be a great teacher. Yes, he will. Well, thank you for hopping on this show. I really appreciate you guys being here, and I'm so glad I get to share all this information with you. So if you have questions, you know how to find me. So I'm going to go off and start making more stuff for you guys to watch. I hope you have a fabulous day, and thank you for being here.